Namaskar and welcome. You're watching Midday Prime on Doordarshan, nation's leading news broadcaster, the agenda-setting news show which gets you a quick roundup of all the national and international news. Home Minister Amit Shah making a big statement on current situation in Jammu and Kashmir in Parliament and also lashing out at the opposition over fear-mongering on Kashmir. All that and much more on the show this afternoon. I'm Sakal Bhatt and here are the headlines to begin with on Midday Prime. Home Minister Amit Shah reiterates that situation in Kashmir is completely normal. Reply to a question in Lok Sabha, he says local administration will decide on release of detained political leaders. Asked Congress to talk of the people of the valley rather than talking about a few leaders. Lok Sabha to debate the Constitution Amendment Bill 2019 extending reservation for SC/ST in Lok Sabha and also state assemblies for the next 10 years. While in Rajya Sabha, the Arms Amendment Bill 2019 is listed for consideration and passage. The world observes Human Rights Day today. President Ramnath Kovind expresses concern over recent incidents of heinous crimes against women in the country. Says such incidents force us to think if society lived up to visions of equal rights. And Twitter declares Prime Minister Narendra Modi's tweet, Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, Sabka Vishwas, Vijay Bharat as India's golden tweet of 2019. The tweet celebrating BJP's re-election win was the most retweeted and liked tweet of the year. More news. India calls for speedier expansion of International Solar Alliance to reduce dependence on fossil fuels. Speaking on sidelines of COP25 in Spain, Union Minister Prakash Javadekar expresses happiness over 83 countries joining ISA in just 4 years. And 13 South Asian Games conclude this evening. India remains at a pole position with 295 medals comprising 160 gold, 91 silver and 44 bronze. And on Midday Prime, we begin with Home Minister setting the record straight once again on ground situation in Jammu and Kashmir, particularly the valley. Union Home Minister Amit Shah said that the situation in Jammu and Kashmir is completely normal. He was speaking during the question hour in Lok Sabha. He also took a dig at the opposition Congress, adding that Congress's condition is not normal. Attacking Congress, Amit Shah says that Congress predicted bloodshed post-abrogation of discriminative Article 370. Nothing of that sort happened, not even a single bullet was fired.
जम्मू कश्मीर की जनता और विशेषकर घाटी की जनता है, पूरी तरह से स्थिति नॉर्मल है। 99.5% बच्चों ने एग्जाम दिया है, वो उनको ठीक नहीं लगता है। सिर्फ श्रीनगर में 7 लाख से ज्यादा ओपीडी के पेशेंट आए, वो ठीक नहीं लगता है। सारे थानों में से कर्फ्यू हटा लिया, ये नॉर्मल नहीं लगता है। सारे थानों में से 144 हटा दी गई, वो नॉर्मल नहीं लगता है। पुलिस फायरिंग से एक भी गोली नहीं हुई, मृत्यु नहीं हुई, वो भी नॉर्मल नहीं लगता है। ट्रैफिक की आवाजाही ठीक ढंग से हो रही है, वो भी नॉर्मल नहीं लगता है। उनको लगता है कि पॉलिटिकल एक्टिविटी कब होगी, वही उनकी नॉर्मल सिंह की व्याख्या है। सारे पंचायत के चुनाव नरेंद्र मोदी सरकार की पहली टर्म में 40,000 पंच सरपंच के चुनाव हमने समाप्त किए, जो आज तक नहीं किए गए, सालों सालों तक इनके शासन में नहीं हुए। इसके बाद में ब्लॉक के चुनाव हुए, सारे के सारे तहसील पंचायत ब्लॉक के चुनाव शांति से हुए। लगभग 95% से ज्यादा वोटिंग हुई है, कहीं पर भी हिंसा नहीं।
The Home Minister also said that a decision on releasing detained political leaders, including 3 former chief ministers in Jammu and Kashmir, will be only taken by the local administration and the central government will not interfere in the matter.
जहां तक राजनीतिक नेताओं का जेल में रहने का सवाल है, प्रतिबंधित आदेशों के तहत, मैं इतना ही कहना चाहता हूं कि हमें किसी को भी एक दिन ज्यादा जेल में रखने की जरूरत नहीं है, ना इच्छा भी। जब वहां का प्रशासन निर्णय करेगा तब उनकी रिहाई हो जाएगी।
Home Minister also informed the lower house that the peaceful panchayat polls were conducted for the first time ever in the state.
सारे पंचायत के चुनाव नरेंद्र मोदी सरकार की पहली टर्म में 40,000 पंच सरपंच के चुनाव हमने समाप्त किए, जो आज तक नहीं किए गए, सालों सालों तक इनके शासन में नहीं हुए। इसके बाद में ब्लॉक के चुनाव हुए, सारे के सारे तहसील पंचायत ब्लॉक के चुनाव शांति से हुए, लगभग 95% से ज्यादा वोटिंग हुई है, कहीं पर भी हिंसा नहीं।
And with the passing of CAB or the Citizenship Amendment Bill in the Lok Sabha, mixed reactions have now started coming in. Speaking to our correspondent Vishal Baristo, the MP from Manipur, Rajkumar Ranjan Singh, has thanked Prime Minister Modi for always keeping his words for northeastern states, particularly the Manipur.
Sir, there were a lot of apprehensions on the Citizenship Amendment Bill. Now you are a relieved lot. Why?
Yeah, actually, the peoples of Manipur is suffering quite a long, right from 1950 onward. We were troubled by the illegal migrants. For example, in 1950, after the partition of India and Pakistan, as per that, some population from the erstwhile East Pakistan came to Manipur, and we established 2 villages only for those refugees coming from the erstwhile East Pakistan. One is the Serou, and another one is the Saiton. These are the 2 areas where new settlement has accommodated for the refugee in the 1950.
Sir, will this inner line permit serve the purpose?
Yeah, the purpose of the inner line permit is to filter those illegal migrants and those who already entered and settled on or before the 31st December 2014. And there are some groups, but of course not much in Manipur. Not much in Manipur. Particularly the Citizen Amendment Bill mentioned that from those countries only the non-Hindu peoples who came to Manipur. So this is a problem. That's we are very happy once the cap is passed, it will be settled and no more the illegal intrusion will be protected by the expansion of inner line permit.
So since it has already been passed in the lower house, now the upper house remains. So do you think that it's a mere formality?
I hope it will be get through and we will win the majority also in the voting.
So there you heard the very pleased MP from Manipur, Dr. Rajkumar, and he is thanking the Prime Minister and he hopes that the upper house also passes the Citizenship Amendment Bill. With cameraman Pramod Negi in Delhi, this is Vishal Baristo, DD News.
In fact, that was an exclusive reaction, Vishal, you got us the first coming in from the legislators from one of the northeastern states. But let's going back to the top story of the day, of course, being that very strong statement coming from Home Minister Amit Shah, once again setting the record straight on situation on ground in Kashmir. In fact, he's comprehensively addressed all issues, whether it is about the panchayat polls, peaceful conduct, or school examinations, the no curfew-like situation on ground. Overall, once again, rubbishing the opposition's agenda on Kashmir, the false narrative that the opposition has always been wanting to hammer in on Kashmir.
Well, absolutely. A very good afternoon to you, Sakal. And you've been there covering the abrogation of Article 370. I was also there, and we've seen ourselves that situation was turning gradually into normal, and eventually it became quite normal as the restrictions were lifted in almost all the police stations. Now, when we go and look at the figures, first it was the panchayat elections, then the block level election, which I myself covered, and we saw that more than 95% polling was there, and followed by the school exams, which saw around 100% pupils taking on their exams. So the situation is fast turning to normal, and the dig which the Home Minister took at the Congress was quite interesting. He said that I do not know what kind of normalcy you want because you were apprehending bloodshed after the abrogation of Article 370 in Kashmir. That did not happen. But as far as the Kashmir situation is there, it is the local administration that is looking after it. The Lieutenant Governor is there. Now it's a union territory, and it all depends on his decision when to release those people who have been put into detention. Sakal?
Right. And also a quick one on the legislative business, Vishal, that has been lined up today in Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. There's a lot of buzz as far as the debate on the SC/ST bill is concerned. What more can you pick up on those lines?
Well, certainly the SC/ST bill, before it was introduced into the parliament, the cabinet committee had already cleared it. So on the very first day when it was cleared, it was made very much clear after the committee cleared it by the government in the House also that a 10-year extension has been given to this thing, and there's no need to worry. Now, why the opposition is apprehensive about it is a matter of grave concern, a matter of question, because there's nothing to be apprehensive about it. And one more important bill is to be introduced, which has been already passed in the lower house, and that is the Arms Amendment Bill, and that would be tabled in the upper house by the Home Minister. So after the hectic parlance over the cabinet, over the Citizenship Amendment Bill, which went on till midnight yesterday, today seems to be quite cooler and happier.
All right, Vishal Baristo, we'll of course keep coming back to you later in the day for more on the parliamentary proceedings. Meanwhile, thank you very much for joining us live from Parliament. Well, let's quickly move on and talk about the other big stories, especially the lineup in the top court today. The top court, the Supreme Court, has already began hearing on a batch of pleas challenging the constitutional validity of the centre's abrogation of the provisions of Article 370, which, remember, gave special status to erstwhile state of Jammu and Kashmir. The 5-judge Constitution bench, headed by Justice N.V. Ramanna, commenced the hearing on a batch of petitions. There's a bunch of petitions, remember, which includes that of some private individuals from the valley and outside, some lawyers, some activists, and also political parties, prominent political parties of the valley like National Conference's Sajad Lone-led Jammu Kashmir People's Conference, and also CPIM leader Mohammad Yusuf Tarigam. Vikas Sarthi, our legal correspondent tracking the story, joining us from the Supreme Court in New Delhi. In fact, he's joining us live. Vishal, quickly over to you, especially the observations made by the top court on this very, very crucial bunch of petitions post-abrogation of Article 370. What does the court say?
Well, Sakal, the Supreme Court said that, first of all, the petitioners must inform the court what are the points, what are the important points that they want to argue on. Because when petitioner came before the court, they said that they had almost compilation of 3,000 pages. So court wanted to know what are the points on which they will argue. The major point which have been raised by the petitioners here is that Article 370 itself talked about a mechanism through which any kind of change and any kind of amendment can be brought into it. There was a mechanism, and because of that, that should have been followed instead of abrogating it through a presidential order. Apart from it, petitioners are also arguing that there must be a Constituent Assembly of Jammu and Kashmir which should have given a proposal for abrogation of 370. Government at center cannot do it unilaterally. So these are the major 2 points which have been argued by the petitioner before the court. Though there are other petitioners as well. Almost 10 senior advocates will argue on behalf of the petitioners, and more than 8 councils will argue on behalf of state government center. So there will be a lot of argument on this whole issue. But today court wanted to know that what are the main issues, because there are voluminous documents, there are thousands of pages, and
But what are these petitioners essentially objecting to, Vikas, and also the line of argument put forth by the councils of these petitioners, especially the prominent ones like Sajad Lone of People Conference and the parties that are represented by National Conference and CPI?
Well, Sakal, the argument opened by counsel for Shah Faisal, former IAS, and he argued two major points. First is that President rule is a temporary cover. Under this President rule, this kind of notification cannot be brought, like abrogation of Article 370. The President rule is a temporary thing, and ultimately it is the Constituent Assembly of the state which should have given any kind of resolution, any kind of proposal to end the special status to Jammu and Kashmir. Other thing is that in the Article 370, Article 370 itself prescribes that the mechanism for alteration of the relationship between center and the state of Jammu and Kashmir. So they said that that mechanism should have been followed, instead abrogating Article 370 through a presidential order or through Parliament unilaterally. There was no role of a Constituent Assembly of Jammu and Kashmir. Whatever was done on the part of state at that point in time was done by the governor.
Okay.
So there was no will of people of Jammu and Kashmir, and these are the main arguments which are being raised before the Supreme Court. As of now, there are other arguments as well, because there are two separate judgments of larger bench, and they
Okay.
are contradictory in nature. So another issue is that whether this bench should hear this matter or it should be referred to a larger bench.
All right, we'll of course keep our eye on the developments there. Vikas Arthi, many thanks for joining us and getting us a quick update. Remember, the hearing is underway. And let's now move on and talk about the importance of today. The world actually observes Human Rights Day today. The day is celebrated on 10th of December, that is today, every year, to commemorate the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which was adopted and proclaimed by the General Assembly of the United Nations way back in 1948 as a shared standard yardstick to protect human rights across the globe. The theme this year is Youth Standing Up for Human Rights, and presents the youth as an agent of the change in society. President Ramnath Kovind flagged the recent incidents of violence against women, saying such heinous crimes force people to think if the society has lived up to the vision of equal rights for all. In his address at an NHRC function this morning, President also said that the ideal way to mark Human Rights Day will be for whole world to introspect what more needs to be done to live up to the sacred text of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights.
Unfortunately, a series of events in the recent past force us to think again. Incidents of heinous crime against women are reported from many parts of the country. This is not limited to one place or one nation. In many parts of the world, human rights of those who are vulnerable and flagrantly violated. Thus, the ideal way to commemorate the World Human Rights Day is for the whole world to introspect what more we need to do to live up to the letter and spirit of the sacred text of the Declaration.
And while addressing the gathering, President also lauded National Human Rights Commission, or NHRC, for its efforts in elevating the growth of scheduled castes and scheduled tribes.
I am glad to learn that the Commission has initiated open hearings to decide cases of atrocities against persons belonging to the scheduled castes, following the recommendations of the KB Saxena report. Also, the Supreme Court of India has entrusted to the Commission the task of improvement in the condition of the institutions for the mentally ill. I am happy to note that the mentally ill now receive better care and protection thanks to the continuous monitoring by the NHRC. The effective strengthening of the human rights at the ground level is, I believe, a collective task of the whole society.
And now let's move on to poll-bound state of Jharkhand, where the campaigning for the third phase of the state assembly polls will be coming to an end this evening. Well, remember, in all, there are 17 assembly constituencies we're looking at. They're spread over 8 districts. They're going to be going to the polls in the third phase on Thursday. The district which actually go to the polls in this phase include Ranchi, Hazaribagh. We had Prime Minister and Rahul Gandhi's rally there yesterday. Giridih, Bokaro, Chhatra, Ramgarh, Saraikela, Kharswan and Koderma. These are some of the important seats that we'll be keeping an eye on. Then out of these 17 assembly seats, campaigning would be ending at around 3 p.m. this afternoon in 12 constituencies, while in Ranchi, Hathia, Kanke, Ramgarh and Barkhatta constituencies, public meetings and rallies can be extended till 5 this evening. The issues of campaigning are predominantly employment, education, increase in inflation, reservation for backward classes and women's security as well. BJP leaders are trying to maximize and capitalize on the schemes that are currently underway. Remember, the government in centre and state, particularly the work done at the state level. On the other hand, you have the opposition, Congress, JMM and RJD combined, focusing on criticizing the BJP-led government over problems of tribals, youngsters, farmers' issues. Remember, Rahul Gandhi talked about it yesterday in public meetings and also rallies Jharkhand Vikas Morcha. And all Jharkhand Students' Union are also promising better prospects to the people of Jharkhand if they are voted to power. Divakar is joining us from Ranchi and Abhishek joining us live from हजारीबाग. अभिषेक, आपके पास सबसे पहले आना चाहेंगे. हजारीबाग की अगर बात करें तो कल एक मैसिव फेस ऑफ हमें देखने को मिला. राहुल गांधी की रैली और प्रधानमंत्री की भी रैली हजारीबाग में रही, लेकिन जो दोनों के मुद्दे थे वो एकदम अलग थे. जहां तक प्रधानमंत्री ने डेवलपमेंट पॉलिटिक्स पे जोर दिया और डायनेस्टिक पॉलिटिक्स को नकारा, वहीं पे राहुल गांधी सिर्फ फार्मर्स इशू की बात बार बार कर रहे थे. तो भारतीय जनता पार्टी के लिए झारखंड में और खासतौर पर अगर इन इंपॉर्टेंट सीट्स की बात करें जो तीसरे चरण में जाएंगे, ये एंटी इनकम्बेंसी कहीं ना कहीं कोई खतरा नजर दिखता आ रहा है. क्या डेवलपमेंट एक मेन रैलिंग पॉइंट रहेगा इन चुनाव में झारखंड में?
बिल्कुल सकल, देखिए कल जिस तरीके से प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी की भी रैली रही हजारीबाग के अंदर और कांग्रेस के नेता राहुल गांधी की भी रैली रही, तो ये पहला मौका था जब एक ही जिले के अंदर दो बीजेपी और कांग्रेस के प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी और राहुल गांधी ने रैली को संबोधित किया. जहां एक और प्रधानमंत्री ने विकास को मुद्दा बताया, एक अस्थायी सरकार को, जिस तरीके से उन्होंने बताया कि केंद्र में अगर अस्थायी सरकार है तो आप देखिए कि किस तरीके से भारत का डंका विदेशों में भी बज रहा है, किस तरीके से डेवलपमेंट के क्षेत्र में देश आगे बढ़ रहा है. तो अगर झारखंड में भी अस्थायी सरकार होगी तभी झारखंड का विकास संभव है. और 19 वर्ष का हो चुका है झारखंड, 2000 में ये राज्य बना, ये चौथी बार विधानसभा चुनाव रहा है, लेकिन यहां पर कभी कोई अस्थायी सरकार नहीं रही. रघुवर सरकार के पहले 2014 से 2019 के बीच में पहली बार किसी सरकार ने यहां पर जो है पूरा 5 साल का कार्यकाल पूरा किया. लेकिन अगर हम मुद्दों की बात करें तो इस पूरे क्षेत्र में ये काफी समृद्ध क्षेत्र है. खास तौर पे जो प्राकृतिक संपदा है वो यहाँ पे उसका भरपूर भंडार है. यहाँ पर कोयला के कई खदान है. यहाँ पर जो बड़का गांव जहां पर राहुल गांधी ने रैली की, वहां पे कांग्रेस से ही लगातार विधायक रहे हैं. लेकिन बावजूद इसके जो लोकल इश्यूज है, खास तौर पे जो विस्थापन का मुद्दा है, वो वहां पर सबसे बड़ा मुद्दा है. इस क्षेत्र में जहां भी कोयला खदान है वहां पे विस्थापन एक बहुत बड़ा मुद्दा है. इसके अलावा जो किसान हैं, उन किसानों की अपनी समस्या है, रोजगार एक समस्या है. वहीं अगर डेवलपमेंट की बात करें तो जिस तरीके से प्रधानमंत्री या अमित शाह अपनी हर रैली में उन्होंने ये कहा है कि इतने सालों का जो गैप रहा है, जिस तरीके से पिछड़ापन रहा है झारखंड का बिहार के साथ भी रहने के बावजूद, और अभी तक उसको पाटने में काफी समय लगेगा. और 5 साल में जो है वो मूलभूत सुविधाओं का विस्तार किया गया है पूरे झारखंड के अंदर. अब जो आगे कि अगर उनकी पार्टी सत्ता में आती है तो 5 साल के उनके अगले कार्यकाल में जो इन सुविधाओं को किस तरीके से और लग्जरी, किस तरीके से सुविधाओं को घर घर तक पहुंचाया जाएगा, घर घर तक पानी पहुंचाया जाएगा, क्योंकि यहाँ पानी भी बहुत बड़ी समस्या है. कांग्रेस जहां एक और जल, जमीन और जंगल की बात कर रही है, जो आदिवासी पॉलिटिक्स की राजनीति कर रही है, उसको देखते हुए सकल ये कहा जा सकता है कि 26% आदिवासी हैं पूरे झारखंड में. लेकिन इसके अलावा जो सीटें हैं वहां पर भी जो विकास किस तरीके से हो, जो आदिवासियों तक किस तरीके से सारी विकास की धारा पहुंचे, इस पर खास तौर पर विकास बनाम जल, जमीन और जंगल जो मुद्दा है वो इस चुनाव में मुख्य है.
बिल्कुल. दिवाकर, आपके पास आना चाहेंगे. रांची से आप लाइव जुड़ रहे हैं. आपने अभिषेक को सुना और खासतौर पर अभिषेक का एक बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट, तो ऑपोजिशन की अगर बात करें, महागठबंधन जल और जमीन की बात कर रही है, फार्मर्स की बात कर रही है, लेकिन स्थायी सरकार, स्टेबिलिटी की बात करें तो क्या जेएमएम, आरजेडी, कांग्रेस वो स्थिर सरकार झारखंड को दे पाएगी? और ये जो 5 साल का रिपोर्ट कार्ड है भाजपा के लिए झारखंड में, किस तरीके का मैंडेट इस बार मिलेगा? क्योंकि जैसे अभिषेक बता रहे हैं कि ये जो वोट है ये वोट डेवलपमेंट पे ही रहेगा मोर और लेस.
देखिए, झारखंड बने हुए 19 साल हो गए, लेकिन पहली बार 19 सालों में पहली कोई सरकार है जो 5 साल का शासन यहां पर पूरा की गई कर रही है, और वो है भारतीय जनता पार्टी की सरकार. तो लोगों में जो विकास को लेकर एक उम्मीद जगी है, उसको लेकर चाहे सरकार जिसकी भी आए, लेकिन लोगों के मन में है कि अस्थायित्व तो अगर रहेगी झारखंड में तो विकास का एक जो पैमाना होता है और जो विकास की रफ्तार होती है वो तेज होती है। और जो सरकार झारखंड पे हमेशा से ये दाग लगता रहा है कि अस्थायी सरकार और भ्रष्टाचार झारखंड की दो पहचान रही है, लेकिन पिछले 5 सालों में वो जो पहचान थी वो टूटी है। तो लोगों के मन में एक चीज जो इस चुनाव में मुद्दा देखने को मिल रहा है कि चाहे वोट वो किसी को भी करे, लेकिन अस्थायी सरकार की बात वो जरूर करते हैं। विकास, क्योंकि विकास की किरण उनको दिखी है पिछले 5 सालों में, तो लोगों को लगता है कि अगर विकास अस्थायी सरकार होगी तो विकास की गति तेज होगी। और लोगों के मन में जरूर है कि जितनी विकास झारखंड में होनी चाहिए थी वो विकास नहीं हुई है। बुनियादी सुविधाओं का विस्तार अभी भी एक बहुत बड़ा इशू है। हालांकि आदिवासी बहुल इलाके, चाहे वो ग्रामीण इलाके हों, वहां पर सड़कें पहुंची है, बिजली पहुंची है, लेकिन लोगों की जो उम्मीदें और अपेक्षाएं हैं कि बिजली 24 आवर्स होनी चाहिए, पलायन, झारखंड जो दंश झेलता रहा है हमेशा से, वो पलायन का दंश झारखंड से हटना चाहिए। तो लोगों के मन में, चाहे वो युवा हो, महिलाएं हो, बुजुर्ग हो, सबके मनों में एक चीज तो है कि झारखंड में विकास होनी चाहिए और विकास के जरिए रोजगार के आयाम पैदा होने चाहिए। और युवा, खासकर ट्राइबल युवा से भी जब हम बात करते हैं कि उन्हें घर में नौकरी मिलनी चाहिए, तो लोगों के मन में बहुत सारी अपेक्षाएं हैं और उम्मीदें हैं। और जब हम विकास की बात करते हैं तो इस फेज में एक चीज मैं और आपको थोड़ा नोटिस करा दूं कि इस फेज में 2 बड़ी पार्टियां, जो अगर हम कह सकते हैं झारखंड की जो बड़ी पार्टियां हैं, चाहे वो झारखंड विकास मोर्चा हो, चाहे आसू पार्टी, इन दोनों के जो दिग्गज, मतलब सुप्रीमो कहने का वर्ड एक चलन में है, सुप्रीमो बाबूलाल मरांडी और सुदेश कुमार महतो, इन दोनों की भी किस्मत इसी फेज में तय होनी है। और बाबूलाल मरांडी क्योंकि पिछले 2 बार से चुनाव हार रहे हैं, तो वैसे में उनके लिए और पार्टी के लिए ये काफी अहम चुनाव है।
रीजनल आउटफिट्स है दिवाकर, और कांग्रेस के साथ जिस तरीके का अलायंस, ये जो तोड़ जोड़ की राजनीति करने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं, आपने कैंपेनिंग पिछले 2 चरणों में भी कवर की, कुछ अग्रेसिव कैंपेनिंग ऑपोजिशन की तरफ से जमीन पे नजर नहीं आ रही है। आर दे रियली रनिंग आउट ऑफ इश्यूज? सवाल ये है कि ऑपोजिशन की कितनी प्रेजेंस रही है इस बार के चुनाव में झारखंड में?
देखिए, एक चीज सबसे पहले, महागठबंधन, शुरू से ही बात हो रही थी कि महागठबंधन में सभी पार्टियां, भारतीय जनता पार्टी को छोड़कर इनकी जो जितनी भी अपोजिशंस की पार्टियां हैं वो सब एक प्लेटफॉर्म पर जाएगी और महागठबंधन बनाएगी। लेकिन विधानसभा में वो शक्ल और वो रूप नहीं बन पाया, क्योंकि झारखंड विकास मोर्चा जो बाबूलाल मरांडी की पार्टी है वो गठबंधन का हिस्सा नहीं बनी और वो सभी 81 सीटों पर चुनाव लड़ रही है। तो वैसे में सबसे पहला बिखराव वहीं पर दिशा। दूसरी चीज, जब अगर रैलियां इन लोगों की हो रही है तो जो भी रैली हो, जहां भी रैली हो रही है, तो एक जो हम कह सकते हैं कि सारे बैनर के जो नेता हैं वो सभी एक जगह नहीं पहुंच रहे हैं और एक मंच पर सभी नेताओं का तालमेल भी नजर नहीं आता है। तो वैसे में अगर एग्रेसिव प्रचार की हम बात करें तो वो उस तरह से नजर नहीं आती है। तो उस तरह की चीजें जो है उसका लगातार यहां पर अभाव भी देखने को मिला है। और जहां तक भारतीय जनता पार्टी की ओर से जो आरोप लगाए जाते हैं कि जो दूसरी पार्टियां हैं वो लगातार इन लोगों पर दबाव बनाने की कोशिश करती है कि किस तरह से विकास का जो आयाम है वो पूरा नहीं हुआ, तो इस तरह की चीजें इस बार चुनाव में देखने को मिली। लेकिन एक मंच पर कहीं भी गठबंधन उस तरह से एग्रेसिव नजर नहीं आया जिस तरह से भारतीय जनता पार्टी की कैंपेन फील्ड में नजर आ रही थी।
एक कंसोलिडेटेड, अभिषेक आपके पास आना चाहेंगे, आप एक कंसोलिडेटेड एग्रेसिव भाजपा जो कि एक पूरे आउटफिट की तरह फंक्शन कर रहा है, अगर हम कैंपेनिंग की बात करें, जमीनी तौर पर प्रधानमंत्री से लेकर दिग्गज नेता भाजपा के वहां पे कैंपेन करते हैं, रीजनल लीडर्स भी, और दूसरी तरफ आप देख रहे हैं महागठबंधन। Okay, we'll have to cut quickly live across to Lok Sabha, where Union Minister Ravi Shankar Prasad, in fact, is speaking right now. These are the live
एम्प्लॉयमेंट में आरक्षण की बात कही। इसके अलावा उनको यह भी लगा कि इस देश के 2 समुदायों को हमें पॉलिटिकल रिजर्वेशन भी देना चाहिए। यह समझदारी बहुत जरूरी है। इस पर संविधान सभा में बहुत चर्चा हुई थी कि हमें पॉलिटिकल रिजर्वेशन किसे किसे देना है। तो उसका उन्होंने ये निर्णय किया कि संविधान की धारा 330 के अंतर्गत देश के शेड्यूल्ड कास्ट और 332 के अंतर्गत शेड्यूल्ड ट्राइब को हम आरक्षण देंगे। यह आरक्षण कैसा होगा? यह आरक्षण उस राज्य में उनकी आबादी के अनुरूप के प्रतिशत में होगा। अध्यक्ष जी, फिर यह भी सवाल उठा कि अनुसूचित जाति कौन होंगी, अनुसूचित जनजाति कौन होगी। इसका भी एक संवैधानिक रास्ता निकाला गया कि देयर विल बी ए कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल ऑर्डर फॉर शेड्यूल्ड कास्ट 1950 एंड देयर विल बी ए कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल ऑर्डर फॉर शेड्यूल्ड ट्राइब 1950। और उन्होंने ये स्पष्ट कहा कि शेड्यूल्ड कास्ट कौन है तो उन्होंने उनकी भी संवैधानिक व्याख्या की माननीय अध्यक्ष जी, और मैं ये पढ़ देना चाहता हूं। कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन शेड्यूल कास्ट ऑर्डर 1950, मैं क्लॉज 3 पढ़ रहा हूं। Notwithstanding anything contained in paragraph 2, no person who professes a religion different from the Hindu, the Sikh or the Buddhist religion shall be deemed to be a member of scheduled caste. और उसके बाद उन्होंने हर प्रदेश में कौन कौन शेड्यूल कास्ट है इसकी संवैधानिक व्याख्या की। उनके सामने एक दृष्टिकोण स्पष्ट था कि हिंदू समाज के अंतर्गत जो कुरीतियां आई, जो डिस्क्रिमिनेशन हुआ, उसके मुआवजे के रूप में हमको ये आरक्षण देना आवश्यक है। उसी प्रकार से वन में रहने के कारण हमारे जो अनुसूचित जनजाति के भाई बंधु हैं, उनकी भी सूची अलग से बनाई गई। और सर, ये जो आरक्षण दिया गया, तो ये पहली बार हर 10 साल के लिए प्रासंगिक रहता है, रेलेवेंट फॉर 10 इयर्स। तो सर, बार बार उसको फिर विभिन्न संवैधानिक संशोधनों से बढ़ाया गया। 1959 में 20 साल, 69 में 30 साल, 2009 में अंतिम हुआ 70 साल। सर, ये 70 साल की अवधि 25 जनवरी 2020 को समाप्त हो रही है। तो अभी हम ऐसा मानते हैं, हमारी सरकार मानती है और सदन भी मानता होगा कि हमारे जो अनुसूचित जाति और जनजाति के जो बंधु हैं, हालांकि उनके जीवन में बहुत सुधार आया है, फिर भी और सुधार करने की आवश्यकता है। इसके लिए इस आरक्षण को आने वाले 10 साल तक, अर्थात 25 जनवरी 2030 तक चलाया जाए, ये संशोधन लेकर के हम आपके समक्ष आए। हमारी सरकार ने और क्या क्या किया है इनके लिए, वो जब हमें उत्तर दूंगा तो विस्तार से बोलूंगा। लेकिन सर, सदन को मुझे बताना है आवश्यक सर कि लोकसभा की 543 सीट्स है, जिसमें 84 शेड्यूल कास्ट के लिए आरक्षित है सर। और सर, विधानसभा में सर टोटल 4120 सीट्स है और उसमें 614 शेड्यूल कास्ट के लिए आरक्षित है सर। और जहां तक शेड्यूल ट्राइब का सवाल है सर, हमारे वो बंधु जो हैं, लोकसभा में उनके लिए 47 सीट्स आरक्षित है और विधानसभाओं में विभिन्न विधानसभा 554 सीट आरक्षित है सर। सर, मैं सदन को बहुत विनम्रता से बताना चाहूंगा कि इन दोनों कम्युनिटी की पॉपुलेशन कितनी है सर। 2011 के सेंसस के मुताबिक सर, देश के शेड्यूल कास्ट का पॉपुलेशन है 20 करोड़ 13,78,372, 20 करोड़ 13,78,372। और सर, जो शेड्यूल ट्राइब हैं, उनकी जनसंख्या है 10 करोड़ 45,45,716, 10 करोड़ 45,45,716. So this is the number as per 2011 census of the scheduled caste and the scheduled tribe. सर, ये सवाल उठता है कि ये आरक्षण कैसे मिलता है, जनसंख्या का कैसे विचार करते हैं। सर, तो ये विचार भी आया था कि देश में परिवार नियोजन हुआ है, उसके कारण संख्या भी नियंत्रित होने की कोशिश होती है। लेकिन ये चर्चा चली थी, अटल बिहारी वाजपेयी की सरकार में मंत्री था सर, तो ये चर्चा आई कि कई प्रदेशों ने परिवार नियोजन को अच्छे प्रकार से लागू किया। माननीय राजनाथ जी है सर, उनको भी स्मरण होगा, वो भी सरकार में मंत्री थे। तो दक्षिण और पश्चिम के कई प्रदेशों ने आपत्ति की कि हमने तो जनसंख्या नियंत्रण को अच्छे प्रकार से किया है, तो अगर जनसंख्या पर आप नंबर करेंगे तो हमारे यहाँ संख्या कम हो जाएगी, और जिन प्रदेशों ने इसको बढ़िया से नियंत्रित नहीं किया उनको पुरस्कार मिलेगा। तब सर, हमने संविधान के आर्टिकल 81 में संशोधन किया कि 1971 की जनसंख्या के आधार पर ही ये संख्या हाउस की चलेगी, जब तक 2026 की दोबारा गणना नहीं होती है सर। तो वहां पर फ्रीज है सर। बाकी यस, यू आर ए वेरी ब्रिलियंट प्रोफेसर, यू नो एवरीथिंग इन एडवांस, आई नो दैट, यस। और सर, जहां तक बाकी सवाल है हमारे डिलिमिटेशन का, तो हमारा एक डिलिमिटेशन कमीशन है सर, उसके अनुसार ये तय करते हैं सर।
Those were live visuals coming in from Lok Sabha. Union Law Justice Minister Ravi Shankar Prasad speaking on the salient features of the Constitutional 126th Amendment Bill 2019. Later in the day on our broadcast, we'll also get you the high points of his intervention there. But let's quickly move on to Midday Prime and talk about this exclusive interview Union Environment Minister Prakash Javadekar, in fact, spoke exclusively to Doordarshan. He has addressed some contentious issues concerning environment, specifically on India's standpoint on climate since hosting COP14 in New Delhi. Now, India has called upon more countries to join the International Solar Alliance initiated by India to reduce the dependence on the fossil fuels to meet the rising energy demands. The minister, who participated in COP25 in Madrid in Spain, spoke on the sidelines of the COP25 summit.
Minister, you hosted the Delhi COP14.
Yeah.
11 summits later, what is your stance on the climate?
I always believe that the climate change is a real danger which has to be mitigated by all efforts by every country. And therefore, COP14 was also an effort to build that consensus for land degradation also. Because land, if it is not degraded, it holds carbon more. And therefore, carbon neutralization also happens through the land which is treated. And therefore, India has taken a massive lead, and Prime Minister declared 26 million hectares to be brought under out of degradation and restore it. So that restoration target is very big, and I'm very sure that all other countries will also take note of this aspect also. Mitigation is not only about coal. Mitigation is not only about renewables. It's about everything. And therefore, this land degradation is also an issue.
Countries generally now are trying to move away from the pre-2020 commitments under Kyoto, moving on to the post-2020 Paris Agreement. So what are India trying to do now to be part?
India will be strongly putting our case and every developing country case that this was a solemn promise in Kyoto that the second commitment period will be more ambitious. But what we have seen is that it is nowhere in sight, and there was some action in first phase, but not in the second phase. So we want this second phase to be strong enough, and if now people can say now it's only 12 months, and the 2020 will also be over, and therefore what to do? But 2020 may be over, but the commitments prior to 2020, that should continue for next 5-10 years, so that those companies who have invested and they have not got the CDMs have to continue. That's our policy and that's our position.
Let's move specifically onto the solar energy commitments that you have. Well, can you shed some lights on those plans?
Yeah, solar energy, India committed 175 gigawatt of renewable energy, out of which 100 gigawatt was solar. And I'm happy to report when Prime Minister made this announcement, India had only 3 gigawatt of solar energy. Today we have 33 gigawatts. And in next 3 years, we'll create that 67 gigawatt also. So to make it 100 and 175 gigawatt will be achieved in time. At the same time, now he has upscaled the target to 450 gigawatts. This is not raising ambition. This is doing good things in more efficiently. And therefore, this is our own way of how India wants to be very serious, because we want to have 40% of our energy capacity mix through renewables.
So if you had to draw up a list of urgent steps that India would need to take, to alleviate environmental concerns, what would that urgent list be?
We have already given our nationally determined contributions and we are progressing on all that. It's only 3-4 countries which are really progressing very well in completing the programs and promises given in Paris. So we have already 21% of reduction in emission intensity. We'll achieve our 35% goal. We have created this renewable mix of 40% in our energy capacity. At the same time, we have taken a target of creating 2.5 to 3 billion tons of carbon equivalent, in which we have already generated last 5 years 13,000 square kilometers of green cover within forest and outside forest. Tree cover has increased, and we are creating carbon sink everywhere. So we are growing in the right direction, and this land degradation, all efforts put together, India will overdo what it has promised, and more importantly, it will outperform itself. We are competing with ourselves, and I'm very sure that all countries need to work, because it's not single country's action can mitigate the challenge. To mitigate the challenge, we need all countries to work in that sincerity.
You mentioned there that you're doing well in the field of forest restoration as well as saving flora and fauna. What do you need to do there to take preeminence now as India in climate negotiations?
We have now released nearly $10 billion worth of money. We have given it to states, and with a specific plan of water and fodder augmentation in the forest, because 80% of rivers are born and flow from forest area only, forest hills. So there will be a water treatment from ridge to valley, watershed development programs, and that will conserve the water. So even human-animal conflict will also go down, because animals will not require to come out, because they will get enough prey, enough grass, food, and at the same time they get the water. So they don't come outside, because that's their natural habitat. And also we are improving and incentivizing the agroforestry, the social forestry, and all kinds of forestry, because once it becomes a mass movement and it is catching up. So plant a tree and grow a tree. We have also come out with a new concept of creating your own oxygen bank. If you plant and grow 7 big trees, that provides you lifelong oxygen. So that's your own oxygen bank. Everybody must create that. We are also having program of urban afforestation, urban forestry, as well as school nurseries, so that the habits are formed right in the beginning of childhood.
Finally, your disaster risk reduction programs, are you increasing them?
Yeah. See, Prime Minister Modi ji has launched coalition of disaster resistance infrastructure, and many countries are supporting. So that will get formalized and institutionalized very soon. But we are already doing various methods, and when there were hurricanes, there were no casualties. So this is happening in India. Otherwise, every time a hurricane comes, hundreds of people used to die, but timely relocation, the NDRF, National Disaster Resilience Force, and these state SDRFs also are working very nicely. And so we are going ahead with full-blown programs of disaster resilient mechanism. And I'm very sure that in very near future will be disaster prone.
Minister, thank you very much.
Moving on, well, in response to queries regarding comments made by US Commission on International Religious Freedom on the Citizenship Amendment Bill, the official spokesperson Ravish Kumar has said that the statement made by the USCIRF on the Citizenship Amendment Bill, remember, which was passed in Lok Sabha late evening yesterday, is neither accurate nor warranted. The bill provides expedited consideration for Indian citizenship to persecuted religious minorities already in India from certain contiguous countries. It seeks to address their current difficulties and meet their basic human rights. Such an initiative should be welcomed and not criticized by those who are genuinely committed to religious freedom. The CAB, or the Citizenship Amendment Bill, does not affect the existing avenues available to all communities interested in seeking citizenship from doing so. The statement further says that neither the CAB nor the National Register of Citizens, that is NRC, process seeks to strip citizenship from any Indian citizen of any faith. Suggestions to that effect are motivated and unjustified. Every nation, including United States, has the right to enumerate and validate its citizens and to exercise this prerogative through various policies. The position articulated by USCIRF is not surprising given its past record. It is, however, regrettable that the body has chosen to be guided only by its prejudices and biases on a matter on which it clearly has little knowledge and no locus standi. Quote unquote. Remember, this is the first response coming in from Indian government, from MEA on this issue. And now let's move on to Midday Prime. It's time to talk about business. From the world of business, all the news, my colleague Preeti joins us. Preeti, over to you.
All right, thank you, Sakal, for the introduction. Up next in the world of business, we'll tell you how US retail major Walmart would open 25 institute hubs in India in the next 5 years, which would train 50,000 entrepreneurs from the micro, small and medium enterprises sector. The company would create Walmart Vriddhi Supplier Development Program to prepare Indian small businesses to enter global supply chains. Walmart Vriddhi will actively work with India's MSMEs to expand domestic capabilities and participate in the global economy. The institutes will be opened over the next 5 years on pan-India locations, convenient for MSMEs from a wide variety of industries and product categories. And Paytm Payments Bank, that is PPB, has said on Monday that it issued 6 lakh FASTags in the month of November and claimed that it has equipped over 1.85 million vehicles with FASTags. The Ministry of Road Transport and Highways had announced that toll payments on highways would be accepted through FASTags only from 1st of December, but this was later extended to 15th of December. All right, that's it in the world of business. It's back to Sakal for the rest of Midday Prime.
Thank you, Preeti. Well, that was a quick wrap-up on business top stories. And now let's take a quick look at what else is making news across the globe. But on World Prime, up first, New Zealand police has said that the 8 people still unaccounted for after a volcanic eruption on a small island popular with tourists are likely dead. The police earlier confirmed that 5 people have died after White Island volcano erupted on Monday earlier as tourists visited. 34 people survived, with 31 still receiving treatment in hospital. The eruption spewed a plume of ash 1,000 meters high in the sky. Volcanologists said that the ash plume shot 12,000 feet into the air. Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison has said that 3 Australians are also feared to be among the confirmed fatalities from New Zealand volcanic eruption. White Island is about 50 kilometers from the east coast of North Island, and huge plumes were visible from the mainland as well. Staying with international stories, a Chilean military plane with 38 people aboard lost radio communication after taking off from the south of country for a base in Antarctica. Chile's Air Force said 17 of those aboard were crew and the other 21 were passengers. The Air Force said it declared state of alert over the loss of communication with the plane and had begun a rescue operation with aircraft and Chilean Navy vessels. Chile's Air Force says that the search and rescue operations are underway to recover the plane and also those missing. And it's time for stories coming in from the world of sports. But India continues its pole position in SAC Games, and for more, my colleague Tapish joins us for a quick roundup of what all is, Tapish, happening in the world of sports. Over to you.
Thank you, Sakal. And yes, India is definitely dominating, continuous domination. The country has stood atop the medal tally as the game marches towards its closure. The 13th edition of the South Asian Game, hosted in Nepal, saw India clinch 299 medals, comprising of 164 gold, 91 silver and 44 bronze medals.
Indian athletes continue to dominate in most of the events at the 13th South Asian Games in Nepal. On the second last day of the Games, India consolidated its top position with 294 medals comprising 159 gold, 91 silver and 44 bronze. In Kabaddi, Indian men's and women's team grabbed the gold medal. In the women's final, India crushed Nepal by 50 to 13 points, while the men's team defeated Sri Lanka by 51-18 in Kathmandu. Indian basketball team also won the gold each in the 3x3 men's into women's event. Likewise, Indian boxers clinched 6 gold and 2 silver medals. Indian swimmers kept their winning streak and clinched 5 gold, 4 silver and 1 bronze on the last day of competitions. Indian swimmers dominated throughout the games and grabbed 50 medals comprising 27 gold, 18 silver and 5 bronze. In the final competition of shooting, Anurag Singh and Shravan Kumar won the gold in the 10-meter air pistol mixed event. India grabbed 18 gold out of the 20 in shooting events. Of the 60 medals at stake in various events, Indian shooters bagged 29 that included 18 gold, 7 silver and 4 bronze medals. In tennis, the Indian team made a clean sweep by winning the men's and women's singles titles. India won gold and silver in both the events as the finals were played between the Indian players. Meanwhile, preparations for the closing ceremony of the 10-day sporting extravaganza has been completed. The closing ceremony will be held at the Dashratha Rangashala in Kathmandu on Tuesday evening. Deputy Prime Minister of Nepal, Ishwar Pokhriyal, will be the chief guest. With Bureau Inputs, Rajkumar's report, DD News, Kathmandu.
Well, Bollywood actor Sunil Shetty has been announced as the brand ambassador of the National Anti-Doping Agency today. With his appointment, the anti-doping body hopes to create more awareness on banned athletic performance-enhancing drugs, as more than 150 athletes have failed dope test this year. Well, that's all from Sports Prime. Sakal, for more news and updates, back to you.
Thank you, Tapas, for joining us for the quick update on the world of sports. And now it's time for our next segment, Live Prime, where you actually get to see stories coming in from the world of art, culture, cinema, fashion, science, as well innovation. Stories that are continuously bringing smiles, stories that are changing lives. So adding another feather to his hat, Twitter India on Tuesday announced that Prime Minister Narendra Modi's tweet on May 23rd post, BJP's win in 2019 general election, is the golden tweet or the most retweeted tweet of the year. Prime Minister Modi is already one of the most popular leaders on social media platform, and this latest tweet from Twitter India only reiterates that fact. The tweet was reiterated over 1 million times and is the most liked tweet of this year. The tweet read, Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, and also Sabka Vishwas, Vijay Bharat. Together we grow, together we prosper, together we build strong and inclusive India. India wins yet again. Hashtag Vijay Bharat. Remember in 2014 as well, Prime Minister Modi backed the golden tweet for his most thanking people for landslide win in 2014 general elections. The 2014 win tweet was retweeted more than 70,000 times, while it had more than 45,000 likes. Now, Prime Minister Modi is the only political leader, viewers, in India to join the likes of Virat Kohli, Sunil Shetty and Anushka Sharma in winning the hearts of Twitterati as well. He has, in fact, over 50 million followers on the micro-blogging platform, making him the second most popular leader there in 2019. And to understand more what this golden tweet really means, Ayushi, who is tracking the story on social media, joins us live from our newsroom. Ayushi, over to you. So the golden tweet, what does it really mean? Why is this so special? And for our own Prime Minister, this is not for the first time that his tweet on social media has garnered such a massive traction, but this time it's only got bigger as compared to 2014.
Yes, Akal, absolutely. This is not the first time that Prime Minister Modi's tweet has been given the title of golden tweet of a particular year. In fact, as you already mentioned, that this year Prime Minister Modi tweet has also been the most liked tweet. And as far as the golden tweet of the year is concerned, it means the tweet that has been retweeted most of the times. So yes, definitely it has been retweeted millions and millions of times. And talking about the tweet of Prime Minister Modi back in 2014, then I would like to show you the tweet that got the golden tweet title back in 2014, which said India won, Bharat ki Vijay. So, and this also garnered a lot of likes and retweets over social media. And well, this doesn't come to us as a surprise as far as the record, if we look at the record of Prime Minister Modi over social media, because 50 million followers over microblogging site will definitely has made him the most popular and actually the second most popular leader over microblogging site, that is Twitter. And with 30 million followers over Instagram, he has become the most followed leader over Instagram, which is way more ahead than US President Donald Trump. So this particular title this year has definitely come as an addition to Prime Minister's social media journey so far. Over to you.
So wherever our Prime Minister tweets or he says or expresses on social media, the world is watching. The world is looking at us. The world is watching. Thank you very much, Ayushi, for joining us on this edition of Midday Prime. And it's time to... Yes, and it's time to wrap up this edition of Midday Prime. Meanwhile, news updates, breakings continue on Doordarshan, nation's leading news broadcaster. Namaskar.